This is the syllabus of ethics paper 4. ठीक है? It's here now. Ethics, integrity, aptitude, paper 4. If it's not visible, then okay, visible now. See, what we're here to discuss is this part: right to information and right to information. See, visible now? Yes. So the point is, UPSC's questions have deep convergence with whatever is going in the current affairs / contemporary affairs. So if whenever you've read recent news, right to information is a lot there in news, and the best part is this is a topic which is covered in 2 places. Matlab highly relevant for 2, paper 4 also and GS paper 2 also. Okay, understood? As a part of governance, right to information is very much important. So we'll discuss today, like from the background to some extent from the colonial era, how right to information or the acts through which right to information was not permitted for the common citizens till the present day times, and the recent amendments which are shaking the base of RTI or the rights of RTI which are being taken away. Chalo, let's start. This was the syllabus. Whenever you have time, go through it. And today's topic is again right to information. So we'll start with okay. So like always, we'll start with a quote. Okay? The quote first, RTI highly relevant for today's topic, GS paper 4, that is ethics and integrity, and GS paper 2, which is governance polity part. Okay? Now, before diving into what is right to information, okay, just remember one word. What is the new oil? Like we say, oil changed the very world. When oil was discovered, and leading to it, the whole world was transformed to some concept. In the same, information is the new oil. Like we say, data is the new oil. So data is what, information is the new oil. And for one, just hota na, brief, if you want to draw a parallel, what is it? Information is equal to empowerment. It can go both ways. Information is equal to empowerment. Okay? How is a citizen empowered? Okay? How is any individual empowered? What do we consider as empowerment? It is the very information through which you can fight. It is the very information through which you can learn. So the whole concept is based on this. Information is equal to empowerment. So let's see one quote. It is by famous US President Abraham Lincoln, and what the quote says is, "Let the people know the facts and the country will be safe." Okay, again I'll repeat, let the people know the facts and the country will be safe. If you want, you can start your answer to some extent. The essay answer also can be always started with such an anecdote that let the people of the country know the facts, the information, and the country will be safe, because there is no better weapon in the hands of citizen than information, the very correct information. So now see, we'll try to understand the structure of the class, how it will go. So first we'll deal with what? First we'll deal with the age-old Official Secrets Act. Okay? First, before RTI, what was there? Okay? This was in no way in comparison to what RTI is today, but this during the colonial times we'll see. Okay? This was the very weapon through which information was not provided to the citizens or to the people in power also of the Indian side. Okay? We'll start with Official Secrets Act. Okay? Then we'll see what? Background. How this act after independence also was to some way steering the Indian society, steering the Indian information system also. Okay? Then we'll see what led to RTI. Just a brief background how RTI came up. So RTI and its definition and the dilemma related to it. Okay? This is what? This is mainly your index page, that the way in which you can just write it down. Indexing page. Next we'll do what? Government dilemma we've discussed. Then the sections, what makes the RTI so powerful? Sections of RTI. Okay? Next, after the sections, we'll see how RTI is powerful. The second part is after sections. We'll see how Official Secrets Act versus RTI and the latest judgment, which is more powerful होता है ना, like for example there's a age long debate होता है that which is more powerful, fundamental rights or DPSP. In the same manner, after the convention of RTI, after the enablement of RTI, the acts or the schemes, procedures of Official Secrets Act, when they are come in conflict with RTI, what happens? That is the next topic. Next is, I told you what information is equal to empowerment, and how are people more empowered? So social audits. Social audits, that is another feature of RTI. मतलब RTI is such an enabler, a positive enabler होता है ना, that through RTI good governance, transparency, accountability, social audit, whatever good you can think of, inclusiveness, very power in the hands of the people, which was envisioned by our freedom holders, by our makers of the constitution. Another example is social audit. Next, after social audit, the age old problem of what? Everything almost right, okay, but then comes the problem of implementation. How are things going to implement? That is the problem. Problem of implementation. Okay, this also we'll see in 3 parts. Like I already told you, there are almost 3 parts to everything: internal, external, and the very structure based thing. Okay, that will be implementation part. Then after that we'll see the data related to it. Like almost 20 years odd have been passed. Okay, RTI came in when? 2005, June of 2005, and it is now December of 2025. So more than roughly 20 years have been passed, and the data, the authentic data, whether it has been successful or not, or whether it was just on paper, whether it has lived in spirit or not. Okay, that was the RTI data. Then seeming that data, we'll see what? Second ARC recommendations. These are what? These are points we can very much enrich your answer. See, all those common points that will include transparency, accountability, better government will be everything in almost everyone's answer. But data and second ARC recommendations, okay, this will make what? It will make your answer be differentiated from the crowd. Just 2 or 3 points, but impactful points. That it. And last we'll see what? Why is it in news? As I told you earlier, the very idea that UPSC sees or we analyze is that whatever in his news, UPSC catches that and tries to frame a question around it. So the recent amendments, okay? Recent amendments, starting from the basic structural amendment which was made in 2019 and the news of 2025. Okay? Why is Supreme Court calling RTI a dead letter? Okay? I'll explain you everything, but in the end we'll see a few articles also that why Supreme Court is calling a very revolutionary idea which was implemented in letter and spirit is calling what? A dead letter. Okay, many other nomenclatures are also there, but for the time being we'll call it a dead letter. Last is what? Concerns and conclusions. Done? Last is again very simple: concerns. What are the concerns? Or we can say way forward. And last is conclusion. This is how we'll go forward. Now, let's start. First, Official Secrets Act. Okay? I'm sure if roughly you are in the exam journey, exam preparation, you might have almost weekly or monthly heard this word. What is Official Secrets Act? Okay? Now see, for everything you need to understand the basic idea, the aim behind anything. See, what did Gandhiji say? Gandhiji said means are as important as the ends. According to Gandhiji, okay? See, always remember the thoughts of Gandhi can be implemented only by him. Okay? According to Gandhiji was means equal to ends. Okay? But this is for Gandhi. In general phenomena, ends justify means. Okay? Remember this. If your ends is justified, then if your ends is hota na, fruitful, productive, or whatever you meant it to be, then the means are justified in the same manner. Okay? I'm just trying to draw a parallel. What are the end means of Official Secrets Act? When it was introduced by the British era, by the colonial era itself, what were the aim, what were the means, what was the basic idea, the foundation principle of Official Secrets Act? So aim was to suppress freedom struggle. Okay? This is the basic idea. So when the idea is to suppress the national movement, the So whatever clauses you will put in this will be enablers to suppressing the movement. So we'll just discuss two to three clauses which had been carried forward from the colonial times to the post independent times. Okay, the first is, the idea is what? They all inhibit disclosure of inhibit. Like hota na, they somehow, they're not enabling, they're putting hurdles, hota na, big blocks of hurdles for disclosure of information. First is what? Official Secrets Act of 1923. Just write it down. Okay, I'm writing it again. It's got a Official Secrets Act of 1923. What did it say? It simply said was, write it down. Okay. Section 5 of Official Secrets Act says a term which is from ages in use like for every democratic country. National security. Okay. National security. And where is it mentioned? Section 5 of Official Secrets Act. What it simply means was, if whatever information at those times, remember 1923, if whatever information at those times were demanded, were requested to some sort by the freedom fighters or anyone in general, it can be said no or denied by stating the clause section 5 of national security, that this falls, or whatever information, this falls under the category of national security and we will not be able to provide it. Okay? Such a simple blanket cover over any information that you want is clause of national security. And what did I say? Information is equal to empowerment, and the very idea was not to empower us. Okay? Now, done this. Second is was Civil Service Conduct Rules 1964. This was pre-independence. Then Civil Service Conduct Rules 1964. These are what? Inhibitors of information passing from the people in power to the very common citizen. Hota hai na? We the people, by the people, for the people, and the people themselves don't have information regarding. Hota na? In just word that we are the most powerful people, but in letter and spirit, where is it being shown? So in Civil Service Conduct Rules, I'm sorry for my handwriting, 1964, it was said that prohibit communication without authorization. Like, for example, you know na, there's a term also. Just try to relate to it. There's a term known as what? Acid test. It's a paper 2 related thing. Like, what does acid test mean is, whatever information can be passed on the floor of the house by anyone. Whatever information can be passed on the floor of the house, like through the parliament at the center level or the state legislature at the state level, to the very parliamentarians, MPs or MLAs, at the center, MPs and the state MLAs. Whatever information can be passed to them can be given to the very citizen of that country or to the very citizens, very common people. That is called acid test. That whatever information can be given to the MPs, MLAs, that is not privileged information. That is common information for the people of India. So that can be given to the citizens itself. This is called acid test. Now relate to it. What is this saying? Civil Service Conduct Rules 1964 is saying that it prohibits communication without authorization. Now it is saying that you need authorization to pass on the information. And what is this saying? That if the information is for MPs or MLAs who are chosen by the very citizens itself, then that information should be given to the public. And this clause is saying no, you need authorization first. So the whole idea is to inhibit transfer of information. Just write down authorization is required. Okay? Authorization. Now, these are just further points to understand the background. Now, another point is what? Okay. Section 123 of Indian Evidence Act. That also said the same thing, that everything can be under national security. Whatever information you're trying to show, possess, that can be easily labeled under the blanket of national security and can be denied to you. Okay. So, understood this again? Now, you understood the very difficulty that a very common citizen, or even to some extent a powerful citizen or an intellectual would have, who is not somewhat associated with the government or somewhat associated with the political citizenry. How much difficulty they would have to just extract basic information. Immense difficulty. It would be next to impossible. So, there is no information, there is no empowerment. Now, we discussed what? This was the Official Secrets Act and how everything was working in tandem to stop information being passed, to stop the empowerment process. Next, next is what? Now we'll come to background of RTI. Background of RTI mean how RTI was brought up. So people wanted information, as simple. You, me, everyone, we all are seeking for information. data is the new oil, information is the new oil, and the very hota na small device in your hands is what? Is the closest you can get to information with a click of a button, or to in the age of eye with a blink of eye you can getting information. So how did RTI come up? Or after this we'll discuss the sections of RTI which make RTI so important. Now see, there were numerous factors at play. There are always hota na, this is a watershed moment. Like such a budding democracy we are, ठीक है, होता ना, vibrant people, young people, and in such a democracy, to bring up such an idea is actually revolutionizing in itself, ठीक है. It is a watershed moment. Like for now, each and every people, ठीक है, almost anyone can demand information very easily, very basically. मतलब it is so easy for anyone to demand information. Just hold on a moment, please. Okay, I'm back. Okay, there was some issue. Now, in today's day and age, it is so easy to demand information. Okay, but imagine, just keep in mind the hindsight that Official Secrets Act was there, Indian Evidence Act was there, Civil Service rules are saying something else. In that background, there were numerous factors at play, numerous individuals, institutions at play. But one of importance is, I'll tell you the name. The name was an NGO. Okay, it was Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan. Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, and it was based off Rajasthan, and they played a somewhat pivotal role. Okay, see, if you want, I'm a history teacher, you know that. Okay, if you want to relate to the history, Sati Act was brought. Okay, prevention of Sati technically was brought, but it was brought through the efforts of Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Okay, Sir Raja Ram Mohan Roy. But there were numerous other factors also, other individuals also at play. But the main burden or the main foundation was given by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. In the same way, there were multiple players, entities at play, multiple NGOs, individuals, to some extent people in power also, because without their support it wouldn't have been possible. So Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan of Rajasthan, they seem to see have borne the larger part of the foundation of right to information, and it was brought up. Okay? Now, the basic idea of RTI is what? Any citizen of India can file information, file for respective information whichever he or she desires, in any public office. This is the basic idea, that anyone who wants information, I'll give you the definition, but what was the basic idea? The turning point idea, that if you want information, you can go up to the public office and ask for that information, and the information will be provided to you in what? 30 days. Now, can anyone say this is less than revolutionizing? Within 30 days. See, this is all the idea, but we'll see how the implementation challenges were there. Okay, now, keeping this in mind, a set of rules and procedures with respect to citizens were given. Another thing important to remember is, it is right to information, like it is part of fundamental rights, and fundamental rights of which part? Article 19 and 21. These two are the articles of the Indian Constitution which are ever encompassing. Their canvas is always open. Everything can be subdued within these two. So RTI also is given the power under Article 19 and Article 21. Now see, we see the background. Now we see the actual definition. What does RTI is defined as? Now, see, it's a bit technical because the government has put up a definition, so you need to remember, but the basic idea you've got, just try to memorize it. RTI is a set of rules and procedure regarding citizens. Again, RTI is a set of rules. Write down as definition. RTI is a set of rules and procedures regarding citizens' right to information. The majority part is what? See, citizens' right. The very common citizens. We the power, we the people, by the people. Very citizens' right to information. This is and according to the next point, you can just add, giving more substantial evidence. According to the second Administrative Reforms Commission, ARC, according to the second ARC, RTI is key to good governance as it leads to improving transparency and accountability. The three words that we have been aiming for, achieving for the last 100 years or so. That is good governance, transparency and accountability. So, according to the second ARC, Administrative Reforms Commission, RTI is key to good governance as it leads to improving transparency and accountability. Okay. Now you've got the definition. Now see, all this is looking very hota na, rosy in picture, like very good. We are doing such good thing, but there is a famous dilemma. See, ethics is all about what dilemma? Choosing between. Ethics is not about choosing between right and wrong. When does a dilemma arise? Choosing between more right and less right. Both are right, or choosing between more wrong and less wrong. Like, it's a very funny way of saying it. Most of the young citizens, when they don't go to vote, what excuse do they give? That one is a bigger criminal or a bigger bad person than the other. So whom shall we vote? No, that is the dilemma. So we have to fight for it. So the dilemma of RTI for the government is, see, you can always quote this. Okay? Secrecy versus transparency. This is the only dilemma which most of the civil servants have, or most of the people in power have. Okay? So we'll see in detail that secrecy is what? Official Secrets Act, and transparency is what? RTI. So in the later part we'll see versus this and how the judgments have ruled in favor or against it. So this is the very basic dilemma. Now you've understood the power of RTI. Now see, we'll see what the sections of RTI. What do I mean by the sections of RTI? See, RTI. What do you mean by fundamental rights? Okay? See, if you need to understand fundamental rights, why fundamental rights? Called fundamental rights, and why this is so important? Because there are a set of rules, obligations which empower the citizen. There are a set of rights which have been given to the citizens against the state. Without those rights, it is like any other thing. But those are rights which are fundamental and they are against the state. There are basic core principles which make it so important. In the same way, fashion or manner, what is so important about RTI? See, the very basic of RTI is what? Against the state again. You are asking information from whom? The state. So RTI also has been given various clauses, dimensions which make it so powerful that today, people, the government, both governments, any government are trying to cut its wings. So what are the sections of RTI? We'll see both the pro sections and the con sections, but majority we'll see what it is. So what is a section? Now see, we start with what? Section 7. There are mainly 3 sections which you need to know. And the 4th section is a very positive one. First is, I'll dictate it, section 7. First is section 7, then is 24 and 11. Then is section 24, then is section 11, and the groundbreaking section is section 4, which is a positive one. These 3 are somewhat negative in context, and the section 4 is almost positive. Now see, what does section 7 say? And why are these sections? So that based on these sections, information is either being provided to you or being denied to you. You'll see that. What does section 7 say? If a lot of resources are required to give information of government, then information can be denied. Now see, it is a very vague term. If a lot of resources are required by the government to pull out the resources which you are seeking, for example, it can go both ways. It actually depends on what? The intent and the intention of the department or the person behind whom you are asking the question. For example, if you ask question about the whole of State Department roads, I get it's a very bulky task, so the state can deny it. But if you ask the very funding of a specific hospital, very specific hospital in which recent incidents might have taken place, that can be seen as both a very magnanimous task that you are asking the information of the whole hospital, a very specific hospital, but the whole hospital. Or it can be as seen as an empowering thing, that the very citizens want to know what is going wrong in the hospital, where are the funds going to. So this vagueness, we dealt with what? Vagueness, ambiguity, and the power that holds. Again, I'll repeat it. If a lot of resources are required to give information of the government, if the government is trying to say that so much of my machinery is being occupied because you asked this question, then they can deny it. But I gave you the example, it might be very specific, very enabling, very empowering, or they can simply deny it. Second is section 24. Now what does section 24 say? Section 24 says, in the case of intelligence agencies, RTI can be denied. Therefore, no RTIs. Till now you understood. Now when I put cross, it means no. When I put tick, it means yes. Okay. This arrow means increase. Simple. These are very simple things. So section 24 of RTI says what? In the case or department of intelligence agencies, when the intelligence is at work, then the very clauses or the very idea of RTI is diluted or it is not empowered. Now, what does Section 11 say? ठीक है, I'll write it better. Section 11 is related to what? Third party people. ठीक है, third party people. No third party information through RTI. ठीक है, third party. Now see, the very idea is so bleak and genuine and beautiful at the same point. What do you mean by third party? Now most of the resources of the government are being used by third party. For example, security service itself. I'm not talking about the energy commandos or the defense services, but most of the services by the government are now being outsourced to third parties. Now, if there is a corruption in that part, okay, then they can easily say that through Section 11, third party information cannot be disclosed. You're getting the idea, na? So, see, now it's a time of privatization, hai na? We were a social economy, but now there's a clear bend towards what? Capitalism. There has been a clear bend. So, through capitalism, what is happening? Most of the government, hota na, C grade services, D grade services, the jobs are being shifted to third parties. Now, if you ask about them, now they can clearly say no. Now, this is a very, I'll just rub it all, this is a very enabling part of Section 4 of RTI. Okay? So, it needs specific mention. Section 4 of RTI. This is a very positive enablement, okay? Very positive article within subclause within the RTI. And what it says was, proactive disclosure of information. What it is trying to say, be proactive. Like if there is some information which is so much necessary for the people in general to know, or there is some information which can be easily accessed. Matlab, you generally understand now what the people are demanding, what the people who file RTI are demanding. You can generally get the idea that they usually ask about tenders, hospital, where is the money going, if the road is being made and it's regged, then where did the money go? Simple clauses. So it is saying, Section 4 is saying that general disclosure should be that some things should be easily out in the open without the need of someone forming or filing an RTI. Like, who made this road? It should be in open. There should be a government website related to state governments, districts. There should be a better way of, but there should be information in the public domain by itself without someone's asking or filing for an RTI. For example, Rajasthan government has already implemented it and its name is Jan Suchna Portal. Example, you can easily quote example, Jan Suchna Portal. Okay, this is what, this will enhance your answer, enrich your answer. Again, I am reiterating that who was the foundation behind RTI? MKS, Mazdoor Kisan Suchna Sangathan. In the same way, Rajasthan, what did they bring up? Jan Suchna Portal for disclosure of information. Okay, basic information is always there available. Now, we've done what? Sections of the RTI also we've done. Now, see, it was also looking good. This part, the first three sections were somewhat gloomy. Now we'll see what? The dilemma of transparency versus secrecy or secrecy versus transparency. And that can be easily seen through Official Secrets Act, the clauses versus RTI. See, there's nothing much. There's just like, as I discussed, the age-old clause of what? Fundamental rights versus TSPSC. Here is also going the same thing. Now, again, you have to see, you can write the answer without the subsections also, but just to be more specific, be more definitive in your answer, you can write this. Section 8, clause 2 and section 22 of RTI. Okay? Section 8, clause 2 and section 22. See, I am putting a trick. This is more powerful and simple. If you don't want to remember this, remember RTI is more powerful than Official Secrets Act, and we are discussing that how. Okay? Section 2, Section 8, clause 2 and section 22 of RTI say that it will override / overrule Official Secrets Act in public interest. Okay? Now, the big word is what? This is more powerful when the question comes of public interest. Now, see, we'll discuss in detail what it means and we'll try to relate it to the previous judgments also. See, the whole concept of GS papers is what? Intermatching, hota na, inter-exchange. You have to start linking. Environment has to link with polity and with ethics itself. Everything is about ethics also and of polity also, but you have to see, you have to show that in your answer. Okay, so again I repeat. Section 8, clause 2 and section 22 of RTI say that it will override / overrule Official Secrets Act if there is a question of public interest. For example, if there is a conflict between RTI and Official Secrets Act and the conflict is related to public interest, RTI will prevail. That is the idea. Exactly related to what? Fundamental rights versus DPSP. है ना? Again, section 2. Now just remember the opposite of this. ठीक है? Section 2 clause 8 and section 3 and section 5 of Official Secrets Act are very vague and broad. ठीक है? मतलब it's simply saying that there are some clauses. Opposite of that, section 2 clause 8. It is very vague, it is very broad, it is very ambiguous. Therefore, a lot of things can be encompassed under it. But when the question comes of what? Public interest, RTI will prevail. Now see, how do you know something is of public interest? Now you have to go a little in the background and understand. There are two phrases which are known as. First is procedure established by law. ठीक है? Procedure established by law. Big line in between. And the second is what? Due process of law. Of law. See, I'll try to, this is a polity thing, but I'll try to just give it in brief detail. In A.K. Gopalan case, ठीक है? A.K. Gopalan case, what Supreme Court said was that they will only follow what? Procedure established by law. It means they will not go into, I'm putting a cross, cross means no. They will not go into the intent, fairness and reasonableness of any act. ठीक है? They will not go behind the intention of that act. They will just keep in mind what the very act is stating. This is called procedure established by law, and it was given in A.K. Gopalan judgment. Okay, whatever the intentions behind the people who are making the law, that will not be called into question. Whatever has been written down explicitly, whatever has been mentioned down explicitly, the Supreme Court will only see that much and give the judgment according to it. Now, what happened in 1978 in Menaka Gandhi case? Okay, this was a case somewhere in 1950s and this is 1978 to be precise, in Menaka Gandhi case. See, we don't need to know what was the story behind it, but the judgment was that, in this judgment it was ruled that, now there's a big tick over here, matlab supporting, okay, that intent, again, fairness and reasonableness will be checked. That is the idea, that if the intention behind the very act, if the intention behind the very bill is called into question, then it might be struck down. The very intentions, the fairness of the act, the reasonableness of the act, the idea of natural justice also came now. Now what do we have? After 1978, we have what? Procedure established by law plus due process of law. ठीक है? What this means was, earlier, prior to 1978, we had only protection against what? Executive action. What does this mean was, if the executive is protection against them, ठीक है? Protection. What this means is, if the executive is doing something contrary to what the act says, then the judiciary can come in between. In fact, the legislature can also come in between and penalize the executive action of the individuals. ठीक है? मतलब whatever has been said and given in the article, in the act, wherever, and if the executive is going against that, ठीक है? It's not seeing the intentions, nothing, but if it is going against what it is saying, then it is wrong. But after the inclusion of due process of law, now the judiciary can take into question what? Legislative action also. Legislative action plus executive action. Matlab, judiciary can itself question the very idea behind that, the very intention, the very fairness behind that also. So understood all this? That is what the idea. Ki, how will we know whether it's public interest or not? The original question was what? I'm sorry if you forgotten the original question. The original question was secrecy versus transparency. And if something is in public interest, then RTI will prevail. RTI will prevail in case of public interest. So how will we decide whether there is public interest? We'll see through what? The intention, the fairness, the reasonableness. Remember these three words very specifically. Okay. Understood? Oh, I went in a bit detail, but try and understand. Okay. Now, next is what? Okay. All this was the technical points. The hota na, sections, what is going on, procedure established, due process of law, all the cases. Now we'll see the simpler parts, okay? The implementation parts or the broader picture of what is going on. Now, what does the broader picture say? The broader picture, as earlier I said, was RTI is what? Information. Information was what? Empowerment. And empowerment is another meaning of what? Social audits. It is through social audits that the very villages or the very grassroots democracy is strengthened, empowered through social audits. Now, how will RTI improve? होता है ना, strengthen the background or backbone of social audits. Now see, what does RTI simply mean? RTI is what? Information. Information leads to what? Transparency and accountability. ठीक है? You can make this diagram, transparency and accountability. ठीक है? Through RTI or through information itself, you can get transparency and account. See, when you have information, you'll exactly know what is going on, where the funds are going or where the funds are not going, who is in charge, who is capable, everything. It will be like clear water, you can see through it, okay? Or like sky also, you can always see through it. So through RTI, there will be transparency and accountability. It's visible, right? Transparency and accountability. Now what will transparency and accountability lead to? It will lead to what? What are we fighting for? After governance, what did you fight for? Good governance. Maximum governance, minimum government. So all this comes under umbrella ambit of what? Good governance, GG. Good governance. है ना? Through transparency, accountability, what are we trying to achieve? The aim is, I told you, no, always ends justify the means, except when Gandhi says it that means should be equally important than the ends. ठीक है? Now, see if there is good governance. So now this is a very broad spectrum, very broad spectrum. You can add n number of points. Through good governance, what will happen? Inclusiveness will happen, corruption will come down, है ना? Trust will bring, citizen empowerment, student empowerment, मतलब everything is empowered. Understood? Matlab this is the part which you can draw n number of things. Inclusivity again, empowerment, whatever you like to say, you can add of that. Corruption will increase, trust of the people for the government, for the society will increase, trust in each other, social trust will increase, होता ना? N number. So this is the impact of RTI through what? Social audit. Social audit also in this structure you can get it. Now, what is next after social audit? See, this is all what? Written in the books. The act has been passed and it has been given a form in the gazette and matlab it is all hota hai na, on the superficial level now. Now we will see what happens next. Implementation, yaar. What is main problem of India? Main problem of India is implementation. In the same way, like you made a beautiful schedule of your studies, okay? Very rigorous, very thorough, like you'll clear the exam in one go. But where does the problem occur? It occurs in what? Implementation. You have a very good idea of studying 8, 2 hours, 10 hours, or whatever you like, good. But the problem is again in implementation. So is the problem with India or any country in general. The problem lies with implementation. So we'll discuss what are the implementation issues and see. We'll discuss it in 3 sides, okay? First, demand side, then the supply side and the structural side, okay? 3 parts. Just make a similar diagram. Visible? Okay, visible. See, this is the demand side, okay? Then comes what? Supply side also. And the last is structurally. Hota hai na? The very rights of the RTI. Structural problems. Ready? Now see, understood? Side, demand side, supply side and structural problems. Like in most of the classes I've discussed, internal problems, external problems and structural problems. Okay? In general problems. So, we'll see one by one. First is the demand side. Okay? Now, how many in the world or how many of you educated Janta, the most you guys are the most educated, right? So, how many of you know the clauses of RTI or how to file an RTI? Okay? The problem is what? Low awareness. Okay? Low awareness. Leading to low awareness is what? Complexity in the very nature. See, it is cheap that you just need 10 rupees to file an RTI and that can also be waived off if you are marginalized section and there are certain clauses which can be easily waived off. But it is a complex procedure. Even if you go through the internet process of it, how do you file RTI online? That is also a somewhat complex procedure for the very common citizens is what I'm saying. See, if you're a computer educated or a tech savvy guy, IT guy, coding guy, AI guy, for you, ठीक है, I understand, most of the people, but for the very common citizens, ठीक है, the very common citizens who are having problem, actually it is a very complex procedure. Next is again with this, there is no one to assist you, ठीक है. See, awareness campaigns और होता है ना, someone somewhere there, it's all written down and it is implemented, but who is there to assist you if something goes wrong? होता है ना, help desk sort of thing. If you go to a bank, if you go to some commercial complex also, there are tables which say होता है ना, how can I help you? Help desk. But in this case, there is no assistance provided. How do you, if you go somewhere wrong in this procedure, online procedure, who is there to help you, support you? That is the point. Next, if somehow you file an RTI, ठीक है, next come what? Then there is, see, now in this part, your interaction is with what? A paper form or a online generated form. Then comes interaction with individuals. Interaction with what? Government official individuals. Like, this is an age-old basic problem in India, that whenever you just think of a government official, there is a certain parameter which is set in mind. Hota na? There is certain judgments which you give in mind. Like, in the next class we'll see in police reforms. When you just hear of the word police in India, you frame a picture. Hai na? In the same way, when you just think of, oh, I need to go to a government office and talk to a government individual, that very picture comes up again. Because why? Because non-friendly attitude of government officials. See, this is all problems. There's no concrete evidence to show this, but in general, what does the public opinion say? That there is attitudinal difference. Okay, there is what? Friendly attitude is not there. Just right? Non-friendly attitude. Okay? Non-friendly. Okay, in ethics we'll again discuss what is attitude. It's a very common word in movies, like he or she is showing attitude, this employee is showing attitude, the state is also showing attitude. Okay? So we'll see attitude and discuss, but just now, right, non-friendly attitude. Okay? Okay. What is next? After non-friendly attitude comes poor quality of information. For example, now you filled the form, okay, or online, offline, whatever. Now you went and met with the officials, whatever his or she or the department's behavior might be. Now what? Now you've got the information. Now information is in your hand. So what is the problem with it? It is inadequate or not satisfactory up to your needs, up to your demands. What does the clause say? The clause say that within 30 days you need to be given information. But what if the information is not according to your standards? Then what's the poor quality of information? In most of the cases you'll see that the information is either wrong or poor quality, or it is nowhere related to what the question was actually arising. It's the same case of what? When you give your UPSC Mains answers, okay, that is the same thing, that the question is trying to ask you something and you answer something totally different. Whatever you know, you just write it down and you're back. But the question actually was asking totally something different. In the same way, the information that is being provided to you is something else. Whatever the individual or the entity or the government department wanted to tell you, who told you, irrespective of what he or she was asking. So information wrong, simple, wrong information. Okay. Now we'll see what the supply side. Understood this part? Now we'll see again a big line. Now what are the issues with the supply side? See, this was the demand side, your part. Now the supply side. Okay. What does the supply side say? The supply side says what? If there is failure, what was the most revolutionary watershed timeline thing? India is obsessed with timelines. Why? Because there is a delay in almost everything. 4.4 crore cases are pending in the judiciary. 4 lakh cases are pending in the RTI itself. We'll see through slides in the last part. But there is already pendency. Okay? So, the very promise was what? 30 days. Now, if this was the promise, then how can be 4 lakh cases pending? In the data part, we'll exactly see how many cases are pending. But imagine that if 30 days, if you're promising to give someone detail in 30 days, it is almost next to impossible given the government structure itself. So, there is failure in this part. Okay. Now, again, supply side is, see, demand side is common citizens. Just to remember, we are demanding, right? So, it is related to the citizens. Supply side is government. We are asking the government, please do this for us. So, supplies is on the government side. So, what did section 4, which was a noble clause, hota hai na, to some revolutionizing clause, that foreclosure of information, of general public information. So, it is not implemented in section 4, is not implemented in letter and spirit. what is the result after that? See, there is so much information which should be available for the general in public domain, very simple. But what if it is not there? What if the very person responsible is not doing it? Then what? So, section 4 is diluted, deleted. Okay, it is not implemented in letter and spirit. Again, you will relate to, again, see, what does non-friendly attitude means? That they are non-professionals, or they are not trained properly, they are not unprofessionals. I mean to say they are unprofessionals, non-professionals. Okay? Not proper adequate training. All this leads to what? Unprofessional behavior. Okay? Last is poor record management. See, many times what happens is the same thing is asked by different individuals. The same topic of an RTI, the same information is being asked by various entities, whether NGOs, people involved, same information. So it should be there should be something that this information has been extracted once, so the same copy shall be distributed again and again. But due to poor management or mismanagement, okay, poor management, the same files are gone through again and again, and they are distributed again and again. Then comes the clause of what? What did I say? That if the government thinks that so much machinery of theirs are going at work for RTI, then they can say no. Remember that clause? That is why. Again, poor management, mismanagement. If you remember, what was that clause? That was section 7 of RTI, which says that if lot of resources are required to give information of, then it can be said no. So again, all leads to what? Poor management, mismanagement. This comes the structural problems. Okay? Now see, I'll rub all this part so you'll greatly understand. Okay, I'll write it over there only. Structural problems. Now what does structural problems say? Structural problems means the problems from the very core of that thing. Okay? Before understanding the structural problems, you need to understand how the RTI works. Okay? How RTI works. What if you want to file an RTI? What is the process? See, I won't go into the details, but how RTI works. You want an information, okay, whatever information that be, X, Y, Z, A, B, C. Now, what you will do, there are two forms, offline and online, whatever you choose, your wish. Then you fill down the form, you submit it. Within next 30 days, okay, your application goes to the specific department, whatever. Okay. So there are whoever sitting over there, there are what? PIOs, okay, information officers. These are called public information officers. Okay, public information officers. Now your application goes to these guys, and these guys have to ship your information within 30 days. What if they are unable to do? What if whatever information they are giving to you is not satisfactory, unsatisfactory, or to some extent nowhere related to the question? Like I gave the example of UPSC Mains answer writing. The question is in some other dimension and you've traveled the whole world irrespective of that. Okay? So if this individual is not up to your satisfaction level, or there is no information provided back to you within 30 days, then there are a few steps in between, but the basic idea is then it goes to what? Information officers, IOs. Okay? Information officers are headed by who? Big name. Okay? CIC, Chief Information Commissioners at the central level / State Information Commissioners at the state level. Now see, it is the responsibility of these guys. Okay? Information officers, including the Chief Information Commissioner at the central level and the State Information Commissioner at the state level, to penalize the public information officers if they are not doing their duty as per the revised guidelines or just as per the act. Okay? Now, what is the case? The case is why we are discussing this. The news part comes in now. So we'll discuss it again through the slides, but basic idea is that the post of CIC has been vacant for 11 times in past 7 times in the past 11 years or so. Imagine that. Okay? For the past 7 times in the past 11 years, this post has been vacant. This information is publicly available. Okay? See, there are interested people who exactly know on which date someone is appointed. Like you see now, Chief Justice of India is being appointed on this date, and his Karyakal or his tenure will end on this specific date. Very easy. And before his retirement, the next position is already appointed. That is the normal modus operandi of the government. But in the case of CIC, something else happens, that this post has been vacant and the 6 months clause, which is a convention of sort, is nowhere applicable. Now, another very interesting thing is, just we are diving into it, that's why, that see, CIC is at the central level, okay? And below CIC what? 10. I'll write a big, you'll see. 10 in IOs, who are what? Information officers. Information officers. This is at the center is what? Chief Information Commissioner. Sorry for my handwriting, matlab you get the idea, na? So what is the sanctioned strength? The sanctioned strength is of 10 information officers at the central level. And as of today, how many are occupied? You know, only in capital, only 2 out of 10 are occupied. Now, if you just want to have a fun laugh, then just imagine the state of unemployment in India. Matlab, people are asking for unemployment, asking for employment, and people are asking to create more vacancies. Bring more number of posts. But the posts which are already there, already sanctioned, are left vacant. That is the very state. It's a very pun intended thing. So this was the idea. Now we'll get to what? The structural flaws again. You got the idea, na? In the next slide we'll see everything in detail, but this is the basic idea. And okay, so clean structural flaws we were discussing. Okay. First, independence of CIC and SIC is into question. Okay. Because without independence of any body or authority, how will he, she, or the very governing body function? Independence into question. Now, how do we say it is into question? Of CIC, Chief Information Commissioner, and State Information Commissioner. For this, you need to understand the background. If you're a South Indian movie fan, then you say what? Not background, you say flashback. Okay, what was the flashback? So what does flashback says? In 2005, when RTI came up, then these two guys, very powerful bodies, entities, they were given equal power and status of Chief Election Commissioner. You can see the similarity. The similarity is CIC, CEC. Matlab, same powers. We are talking in 2005 till 2019. Okay? 2005 till 2019, same powers. What does same powers mean? Same powers means Chief Election Commissioner is what? A constitutional body, a constitutional post. Body, constitutional post. Okay? So, it has what? Independence of tenure. It has safety of tenure. And it has got defined functions. And to some extent, no other separate entity, body can interfere in its functioning also. That is also a very strong point. You get the basic idea, na? So, both were equated as constitutional bodies. Okay? Now, in 2019, as I mentioned, till 2019. In 2019, what happened was, the present status which it had, okay, I'll change the color, you'll understand better. The present status which it had was downgraded, degraded. Okay? So, it was 2019, somewhat post 2019, the judgment had come in 2019, but for reference, the position of CIC was downgraded / demoted. Okay? Understood now? What were the two things through which it was? The first was what? Earlier it used to have a tenure of 5 years. Now the tenure is used to 3 years. Will anyone say it's a promotion? No, it's a proper downgrade. Hota hai na, proper demotion. So, next thing, most important thing was, earlier it was equated to Chief Election Commission, a constitutional body, a constitutional post. To some extent, a High Court also. But now it is equated to what? Secretary. See, again, the post of secretary is very powerful, very, very powerful. We all are aiming to become IAS officers. Then we'll somehow try to achieve the post of secretary. But compared to a constitutional body, constitutional post, this position is very much downgraded, demoted. Now what does the post of secretary mean? The post of secretary means that he, she, that very post appointment is highly regulated by the central government. Highly regulated by the central government. See, if you try to understand how this is working, okay? It is a bit of a political nuance to it, political pun to it, that earlier constitutional post, okay? RTI was brought during the tenure of, I won't be taking names, just search, during the tenure of not the present ruling government, not the present regime, okay? In 2005, I'll write it down over here, okay? When RTI was brought, there was some other ruling regime. In 2019, when the rights of RTI itself was struck down, as you saw now, its tenure was reduced. The very position of post, which was earlier constitution, now reduced to Secretary of India. Okay? So this came in 2019, a different government. You are understanding? Like both governments have issues with RTI. If you want to relate it more, you can just imagine what? You have heard FCRA, Foreign Contributions Regulation Act. FCRA. Okay? When this was brought out, okay? Whichever government brought it out, the idea was that they were somehow trying to dilute it. Okay? Just imagine the irony that the opposition party and the ruling party both were working hand to hand to dilute it, because it was affecting both of them. Both are receiving foreign funding, so if this clause comes under transparency, accountability, then both will be affected. So both in tandem were working towards against it. In the same manner, in the case of RTI also, okay? Instead of empowering it more, okay, giving the very citizens more power, more empowerment, more information, what are they trying to do? They are trying to stuck it down. Okay? See, they can't simply make it null and void. So they are the very idea of power. Who will penalize the public information officers? The information officers and the CIC and SIC. But now the tenure of SIC has been reduced, CIC has been reduced. So imagine what is going on that present individual's mind, that his powers are curtailed. Second, earlier he used to think that I've been given the post of a constitutional body, but now he's only a secretary. Secretary means all his terms, conditions will be derived, organized, articulated by the central government. This was the first structural flaws. Okay? I'm sorry I went into too much detail, but this was a very structural flaw. Now, what is the next structural flaw? As we discussed again, the next structural flaw is very simple. What we discussed is vacancy. Okay? In 7 years, 11 times CIC post vacant. Okay? Only 2 out of 10 information officers post is occupied as of today. Okay? If you see the whole structure, roughly 30% is vacant. This is another structural flaw. See, I'm just trying to draw a parallel again. Okay? Keeping this in mind, the Supreme Court had coined that RTI shall become a dead letter if this thing is going on. See, in the judiciary itself, 4.4 crore cases are pending, and it is commenting on the vacancy of RTI. In the judiciary also more than 50,000 judges are required. I'll show you the actual newspaper articles, authentic information. One institute having the same problems is suggesting another institute having the same problems, and both are doing nothing to get over that problem. Just a fun way of saying it. Next is that another thing, structural flaw. The end is what? See, what do CIC/SIC and below them information officers, what they do? They penalize the public information officials. How do they penalize them? If they don't give information within the prescribed time limit, and if they don't give valuable information or the information which was required, they penalize them. So what is the conviction rate? The conviction rate is less than 1.5% to 2%. This is the conviction rate. What does this mean? This means that more than 97% of cases there is no conviction. This also shows what? Leniency towards PIOs, public information officers. The leniency of what? Leniency of these guys. Leniency of leniency of these guys towards public information officers who are not doing the mandated duty. This was what? The structural flaws. Hota hai? Write it one by one, step by step. Now, after supply of water, now we'll see what? Data. Hota hai na? Enhancing your answer. What is it? Data. And hota hai na? Numbers don't lie. We remember that, right? Numbers don't lie. So, what is the data? First and foremost, what are the cases pending? Is it visible? No, I'll write it in white. ठीक है? RTI data. ठीक है? Data is a plural form. What is the singular of data? It's called data. Not important. ठीक है? First is pendency of cases. ठीक है? It is now 4 lakh. Just how will you remember it? Remember in judiciary there are 4.4 crore cases pending. Just the 4 number is identical. होता है ना? To somewhat symbolic to our system. So in the case of RTI, 4 lakh cases have been pending. ठीक है? Next is what? 30% vacancy was there. Remember that? 24 out of 155 posts are vacant. ठीक है? मतलब so much vacancy we discussed ना. 2 out of 10 information officers only present as of today. Rough figures of what? See, these are almost latest data, but who is trying to calculate every day? But according to data, 24 out of 155 posts are vacant. ठीक है? Write this down. 24 out of 155 posts are vacant, including, मतलब this whole system is regarding CIC at central level and SICs. ठीक है? In this, there are total 155 seats, only 24 is vacant. ठीक है? Now, see that structural flaw is also data related flaw. We discussed that 97% of the cases there is no conviction rate. That is also data. That only 1.5 to 2%. 1.5 to 2% is only the conviction rate. This is all the data part. Now, we see what? The second ARC, matlab you've got the whole background story, the backbone of RTI is done, data is also completed. Now, a few recommendations, how things will go forward or what few powerful entities, bodies, recommendation committees are suggesting. What is the ARC recommendation? We'll just see 2 points. Second, Administrative Reforms Commission recommendations. Okay? Very simple, very small. Just jot it down. First recommendation is repeal Official Services Act or Official Secrets Act. Sorry, not services. Matlab there was we discussed the dilemma of the government regarding accountability and transparency. Sorry, transparency, accountability in the same part and secrecy. So what second ARC is saying? Delete Official Secrets Act itself. इसी को हटा डालो. होता है ना? Delete it. Second is what? Because मतलब it has to give reasoning also. And see, ARC is a very big report. मतलब if you'll see, it's somewhat 3,000 plus pages. So what the reason they gave her? It is very simple. Every law, fact, what reason? There is what? Ambiguity, vagueness. What these two lead to? Both these leads to loopholes. है ना? So the very idea is it should be deleted according to Second Administrative Reforms Commission. Why? Because there is ambiguity, vagueness leading to loopholes. Next is very simple. ठीक है? See, this you can use in almost any answer. ठीक है? Because the whole dilemma of the government was secrecy versus transparency. So the ARC gave a very novel, होता है ना, very mind-blowing idea that, you know ना, there's oath of all the government, constitutional body, constitutional posts and all the government officials, there's oath. So there's an oath of secrecy. You might have read in all your books, there's an oath of secrecy. So what ARC is recommended that oath of secrecy of politicians should be replaced with oath of transparency. So this should be removed, oath of secrecy should be removed and it should be replaced with oath of transparency. See, I've just selected these 2 recommendations because this is where what you can use in an answer. है ना? Whenever this comes, internal security comes, then also Official Secrets Act can be quoted. This from governance, any of the parts of the government, that political blockage is there, political turmoil is there, or the very intention of politicians is not there. So this act that political secrecy should be removed and it should be done with political transparency. Understood? Now, last part is what? The recent amendments. We've discussed that, but we'll see through again what are the recent amendments. As I discussed in 2019, what happened was recent amendments. ठीक है? What happened in 2019? Tenure was reduced. Tenure reduced from 5 years to now 3 years. Earlier it was what? Compared to high courts. Okay? Now high court / chief election commission, chief election commissioner. Now it was just secretary. Again a very demotion. This was what? Recent amendments of 2019. And in 2005 there is, the only question is of power structure degrading. How? Because of vacancy, because no one is filling up the post. The government is not finding suitable people. Given the unemployment data, government having the posts are not finding suitable people. That is, see, now what happens is, there are people, but if there is no person in power, okay, who, he or she, whatever, okay, who can give penalties, then there is no motivation, or there is no, to some extent, there is no will, there is no push factor that why should you work, because there is no penalty involved in it. Okay, this was it. Now, these were the recent amendments also. Now the very last part is what concerns, way forward and conclusion. What does the concern page say? Okay. See, concern is what? A very basic thing. Okay, just whatever you studied, just sum it down, and those are the concerns. Whatever the challenges are, what are the future insights are stopping, making it a great organization, making it a great amendment, great revolution. You get the idea, na? So whatever is stopping it, those are the concerns. Now the concern, the very basic concern is, okay, as the government has now made that position, or degraded that position from the idea of a constituent body to secretary. Now who holds the tenure? Okay, as the government would now decide what? The term will decide, tenure, salary, everything will, government didn't specify anything. So it has just kept the canvas open. So it can do it by case by case. If a very honest, see, we are just trying to see the criticism part. Okay? If a very honest official comes to the head of the post. So now, and if it is working not according to the whims and fancies of that present government or head, then the power of tenure, the power of everything rests with the government itself. So this is a concern, because then it will affect the independence of that very individual who was honest in the first place. Second is what? Second concern, again the same thing, that the status of Chief Information Commission and the state information is diminished from that of a Supreme Court judge. Now they are only secretaries. That is also a concern. Next, there was no consultation while bringing up the 2019 bill. There was no consultation done in, just write it down, these are basic points. Okay? Again, this all leads to what? The very idea of dilution of SOP. This is again a separate topic, but the very idea of dilution of separation of powers is being diluted, because what a Chief Information Commissioner, they are somewhat a judicial post. Okay? It is giving penalties, semi-judicial, quasi-judicial, whatever you like to call it. But now the bureaucracy is interfering into it. So separation of powers is being affected. Okay, now conclusion. Conclusion is a very basic idea. Okay? What? Independence of the regulator is important. Accountability, efficiency, functioning. Okay? Government should focus more on RTI, implementing, proper implementation. Basic answer of anything. Now we will just see, going through the slides, the newspaper articles, through which the present context is more concrete in your idea. See, this is the idea. Okay, sorry. Okay. Basic idea is that how RTI became so powerful and why it caught the limelight of the regimes itself, the government itself, is that because through RTI, through the very information empowerment, various scandals, various scams came to the surface. For example, Vapam scam, other scam, Commonwealth Games scam. Just go through the list. This is not the idea, but through this, the regime and the government both understood that it is a very powerful thing. Now these are the concluding slides. Okay? Here you can see tenure was cut to 3 years, 2019 judgment, and this is the new thing. Okay? Right to deny information because, just read it down. Understood? This is another very novel thing, that, what do we say? The government is trying to control the very information officers, and this is not seen in the very history of India, that 250 crore fine for flouting citizen information. Like if a citizen, if a PIO, public information officer, gives data which is not in tandem or which is not wanted by the government or any person in power to be given to the public domain, he will be fined what? 250 crore. That is the maximum amount of fine. Imagine, matlab, 250 crores of fine. Imagine the importance of data. Imagine the importance they are giving to what? Hota na, like they are giving importance to private secrecy. This thing simply shows that there is no idea of transparency. Like if someone in the good faith, goodwill, like the whistleblowers do, fight for it and they give information which according to him, her, whatever, according to that very post, that is good for public domain. But if the people in power think that it is wrong, he will be fined 250 crores. Now, can anyone ever think of paying such a fine? Like you've seen in various environmental cases or what not, is like lakhs and lakhs of crores of rupees should be fined. But whatever be the scene, a simple nominal amount have to find, and the people go, or companies or entities just go around with it. But for an individual itself, even that will be government officer, public information officer, he is being fined for 250 crores. Imagine the grave situation in which RTI is. Okay? Now see, these were those headlines which I told you about. CIC, headless and toothless. Empty posts are center states have paralyzed. Okay? While personal, simple. How RTI regime was captured. Okay? There are vacant posts and penalties are barely 1.2%. I said 97% of the time there are no penalties. Just go through it. And most of the cases, there is a procedure that before the retirement or whenever the post becomes vacant due to natural or normal causes, before that 6 months prior to that, next person to be appointment shall be known. But in the case of RTI, it's not being done. We don't know why. Okay? Again I said, see, headless for the 7th time in 11 years. I am reiterating this again. Central Information Commission faces crisis. Like for the 7th time in 11 years, it has been vacant. Now, this was the starting. RBI will become a dead letter said by Supreme Court, and this was the concluding side. See, as I compared both the organizations, RTI and judiciary itself. In the judiciary itself, India needs more than 73,000 judges. Here also, n number of vacancies are there, and the same is case of RTI. But both, RTI is not claiming judiciary, but the judiciary is commenting. It's got the right to comment, and we've got no right to stop it because there's always a clause of contempt of court, which we'll see in the next polity class. Okay, that is for the thought. And just keep in mind that if these things are going on now, like there are 4.4 crore cases in judiciary, and some said that it might take roughly 4 to 5 decades to solve those cases. In the same way, in RTI also, there's an NGO which found out this data that if the present state of affairs is going on and there is still vacancy, then in some states it will take roughly 7 years, and in 7 states it will take roughly 20 odd plus years. That is the state of RBI. Hope you've understood it well. Okay, now thank you. That's it for today. Yep.